Okay, here we go. Okay, Zok the Heilige Gemara. Hashutfim shanadru hana zemizeh. Shutfim that prohibited each other from having a na from each other. They're shutfim in a field, and because of that, zogan derabanan asurim likonis l'chatzer. Neither one of these two partners are allowed to enter the very chatzer that they own the shutfins. Neither one is allowed to enter the shutter, the chatzer that they rented the shutters. And right off the bat, the Ran has a problem. But let's just hear Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Shita. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, Zen nichnas l'sarich shaloi, Zen nichnas l'sarich shaloi. Why would there be a problem? Everyone is only entering into his own property. He's not infringing on the shutter's property, so there's no reason why it should be a problem. So the Ran starts off by telling us that the Gemara will tell us, and we're going to learn it on Memvav today, shortly this evening, that it's speaking about a field that was too small to be able to split in half. So therefore, this field is going to remain shared forever. That's how this property is going to be used. And the machlokes is Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov holds yesh breira, which means wherever I end up going, whenever I end up going, we'll say that in the original condition of the sale, it included all the times that I would be using the property. And whenever my shutav is using the property, in the original condition of sale, when we bought it, that's what he purchased. Which means we're never going to be infringing on each other. Because whenever I'm there, that was mine. He can't ask for mine. Whenever he's there, that was his. On the other end, the Rabbanan hold that we don't hold a prayer. At any given moment, I might be on his property, and that's why I can't go there. There's a couple of problems that we have to work through just to get to the basics. So the very first problem that the Ran asked is Utmeani. Nehidika Savi Rabbanan Ein Breira. Okay, so they hold Ein Breira. But still, am I Asur Likonis L'Chatzer? Yes, it's a question if this is his, if this is mine, but it shouldn't matter. Even the Chatzer, She'ein Badin Chalukahi, the fact is this is a Chatzer that we're always going to share, because it cannot be split. We're never going to split it in half. And the reason why a Chatzer doesn't have a Din Chalukah is if it's too small. It's too small to make either half a viable field. And therefore, Ve'ein Shutaf Yachar Lokov Es Chaver Lachloid. Neither one can force the other to split the field. And neither one can prevent their friend from entering the field. So their financial ownership, neither one's ownership allows them the ability to prohibit their partner from entering. So if I don't have the financial, if I don't own the right to prohibit you, how could my nether prohibit you? I could only ask for something that belongs to me upon you. I can't ask for something that doesn't belong to me. So if I couldn't tell you I don't give you permission to come into my field, I can't make a nether. I can't ask it on you with a nether. So that is the Iran's first problem. So Zokterman even more. Never mind in this case where I prohibited you from coming into my property, even if I prohibited myself from going into your property, it should be the same issue. Why in the world will I be usher? When I'm going into this field that I own the shutfis, I'm having a no for my ownership. So that is the Fran's first problem.
Why can't he answer it on himself?
I can answer my field on myself, and I can answer your field on myself. But even if I answer your field on myself, when I'm walking in, I'm not walking into your field. I'm walking into my field because I'm allowed to walk there. So even if I say your field should be usher to me, I'm still allowed to walk there because I'm walking into my field.
The last part,
Even if not you answered me, even I answered myself from having a no from your field. When I'm walking in, I'm not having a no from your field. I'm having a no from my rights to the field.
But he could answer himself on his own field.
He could, but that's not what we're discussing. That's right. But when I bought the right to walk into it with it. So
every step you take, you're walking on his also.
But you're right, but my rights is, when I'm buying it, I'm buying the rights to walk in it, and you're buying the rights to walk in it. So basically, each of our rights gives us the right to walk in it.
Now that you can ask each other from.
But you can't ask for my rights, it's not yours. When I'm there, it's my right.
It's my right too, so.
It doesn't make a difference. If it's my right, you shouldn't be able to ask for me. It might be your right also. That's why I can't ask for you.
Can we ask somebody to go on the street, the streets is right from.
So therefore, the Ran wants to say that according to the Rabbanon, according to Yosy ben Yaakov, we don't need to say it, but according to the Rabbanon who says it's usher, there's actually a dual contract. Whenever two people buy a property together that they will not be able to sever, there's actually a dual contract. There's two separate transactions occurring. Veneerly, Zaktaran, to keep on the after Loimar, the whole chad, it's impossible that each one owns the full property forever, because the idamar lav damar. If it belongs completely to A, it cannot belong to B, and vice versa. The Efshir Loimer Gamkain, and you can't argue either. The Bishash Mishtamish boy, Igloi Milsalam Afreya, the Bishash Knia, Kanala Lahi Shait, the Kina Guf, the Embraer. You can't say, since we don't hold the Brera, you can't say that when we originally went into the purchase agreement, it actually at that point crystallized, for these 10 minutes it's going to belong to me, and for those 10 minutes it belong to you, and it creates an automatic, it actually fills up an entire schedule that's going to be based on our use. I owned it fully for this minute, and you owned it fully for that minute. You can't say that, because exactly, you cannot say it would be a timeshare, because ain't Breyer. The Chachamim in our mission do not subscribe to Breyer. So how do you have to understand how the transaction works? Everybody has their financial interest in the property itself, but in addition to the interest, the financial interest that I have in the property itself, I also have a kinyan shibud bechelka shel chaverai she'ein Allah yochal la'akav alav min adin. So really, I pushed off Yisrael's question, but really the Ran's addressing your question. And the Ran is saying is, I have my chelik in the property fully, but in addition to my chelik that I have in the property, I also have a shibud that you're meshubah to me. Your owner, whatever you own, is meshubah to me, that you cannot prevent me from going into it. Because if we're buying something b'shutvis, not only do I need to own part of it, I need to make sure that you can't block me from owning it. So it's like on top of the ownership that we each have, there's also a set of conditions that you gave me a shibud in your kaka that you won't prevent me from entering, and vice versa. And it's this overlay to the main purchase agreement that is you're able to circumvent with another. Why? Because the kainamais mafkiin. Actually, I skipped a line. So I also have a kinyan shibud bechelka shel chaverai shein halah yachal la'akev alav min adin ak apagav d'laikana legufa. So even if I'm infringing on your part in order to get to my part, there's an overlay on our property deal that you cannot prevent me from walking there using your ownership. Hilchach kasavi rabbanon the Isaac in Shivut sheyesh lo achelka shel chaveroi that kainamos mafkiin Isai. I cannot aser you to use your property, but if I make a kainim, that will break the shibud that I committed to allow you to step onto my property. Umishum hachi aser. That's why it's aser, because we know there's a rule that kainamos mafkiin midei shibud. So that's the first hump we have to get over, is according to the Rabbanan who hold that it's usher, what financial right do you have to put an isser on me enjoying my property? The answer is because I need you to allow me to use your property whenever I'm using my property. And that's just merely a shibud. And a shibud can be broken with an eder. So that's the mechanics how it works.
If the field was big enough, let's say it's a normal size field.
That could be split.
On this field.
That the Gemara is going to discuss on Memo base in detail how we would process a field that's going to be eventually split. Because that doesn't work this
I
way.
don't know why you're not working your way down. First, tell me about a field that is big enough. You started with a square foot field that's not possible to divide. Go first to the
Because,
one that you can
because
divide,
only
that's
that
the
is such a
example.
financial arrangement. Let's wait till we get to Memvavam Beis, where the Gemara is going to analyze how the sale works and our ownership rights in a field that will eventually be severed. But now we're talking about a field that cannot be severed. So that was the first hump that we got over. The second hump, so based on this hump, the Ram actually tells us something very interesting. Anybody who owns residential properties know that if you have to get rid of a tenant, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. So the Ran comes up with a fabulous ploy how to get rid of an unwanted tenant. I'm just asking all the property owners in the Shir not to fire their lawyer quite yet, because it's a good idea, but you might still want to hold on to your lawyer.
Who's David Zoltan?
The Ron
No, there he is.
Ron's living in liberal.
The Ran also had problems with getting rid of tenants. So this is a great idea, but you still might need your lawyer. What did he say? Since I'm able to undo a shibud with a neder, with a koinem, when you rent a property, the renter doesn't own the property, you own the property. The renter just has a shibud on you. You're meshabed your property to let him live there. Zoktaran, if you ask him bahana, he can't have enough of it. So you can get rid of it very easily. That's why I told you maybe you should still keep your lawyer. But if you answer him bahana, he won't be able to. And even if he prepaid the rent, the Ran is very practical. Even if he prepaid the rent, it still doesn't give him anything more than a shibud that you could circumvent with an isher nether.
But what can he say to preempt it?
What could who say to preempt it?
The guy who's
The
renting.
tenant?
Let him make some kind of.
Nothing.
Like if
Nothing. That's the beauty of this Ran's Eitzah.
he's nothing, he can say he's in there. He's got him a shoe and he says.
All he has is shibud. I answered him bahana. So kainama is mafkim de shibud. Now, not all of you trying to hold like this. And I'm not sure if the Ontario law works this way either. But I'll call upon them. This is a very simple way to get rid of an unwanted tenant. Okay, so that's the second point. The third point is we have three pieces of information combined create us a problem. The first piece of information is that our Gemara on Mem Vav Amud Bey says halacha Kraveles ben Yaakov that in fact there is no issue. Each person could walk into this field and it's not impacted by the issue of the other person. That's piece of information number one. Piece of information number two is a Gemara in Bava Metzia that says the reasoning behind Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov is because of Yesh Breira. Now, the way we explained it up front is totally Yesh Breira, but there's going to be other options. So with these two pieces of information, it tells us that our Gemara is paskening halacha l'maisa Yesh Breira. The problem is that in the Gemara Beitza, the Gemara says that Rabbi Oshia holds that when there's a question of a derabanan, you say Yesh Breira, but you don't say Yesh Breira when there's a question of a deraisa, and the Gemara in Beya passes like Rabbi Oshia. So with these three pieces of information, we have a problem because Rabbi Oshia says Ein Breira by deraisa, and the Gemara seems to pasken like him, and our Gemara passes like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, and with the explanation from the Gemara in Bava Metzia, that's basically saying Yesh Breira. So you can't have it both ways. You say Yesh Breira or Ein Breira, right? So there's a whole bunch of different Terusim that are offered. So the Rebbeinu Tam has a simple solution. The Rebbeinu Tam has a simple solution. Our Gemara passes like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, but the Psak Halacha, our Gemara agreed with that each shutuf is allowed to walk in. But who said that they hold of Rabbi Eliezer's reasoning? Maybe there's a completely third reason why each allowed to walk. Now the question is, walking in someone's field is vitor, right? We have all through the Mishnayos of our Masechta, the Gemara keeps saying, Shema Mino, you see from this Mishnah, vitor also Bermuder Hano. Zok to Rebbeinu Tam, maybe our Gemara here is paskening, vitor is mutter Bermuder Hano. So yes, we're passing like Rabbi Eliezer. We know Rabbi Eliezer holds Yesh Breira, Rabbi Eliezer Yesh Breira, because the Gemara Bava tells us that the swore of Rabbi Eliezer is Yesh Breira. We also know throughout our entire Masechta, Rabbi Eliezer holds Vitor is Aser the Mudarana, but maybe our Gemara here is paskening like Rabbi Eliezer but not because of his reasoning. They don't agree with his lumdus, but they do agree with his conclusion that each shutuf can walk around, right? Even though be'etzim it's usher, but vitor is muter v'muter no. That was Rabbeinu Tam's way out of this mess. So all Rabbeinu Tam did is he got rid of the center. The center factor was that the reason for Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov is because of Breira, and we're arguing and we're saying, yes, that's Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov's reasoning, but the Gemara's reasoning for possibly like him is not because of Yesh Breira, it's because Vitor Mutar B'Mudana.
So that's what we're going from last part, the Vitor is not also with it on that.
So one of the questions that the Ran asks is it's very difficult to say that all through the entire Masechta we keep on bringing Stam Mishnah after Stam Mishnah that says Vitor is also B'Mudana, and now we're going to pass in the opposite way. That's very difficult to accept. So that is exactly one of the Ran's questions. So the Ran says, so the Ran brings down a Ri. Rabbi Yitzchak, I'm assuming that's the Ri in Tosfos, who has a different teretz. He says, it was Rabbi Tam's cousin? Okay, so he says that really we hold Yesh Breira even by Daraisa. The Gemara passes like Rabbi Oishia, who said Yesh Breira by Darabana, not by Daraisa, and Nechnami. But that doesn't mean the Gemara doesn't say that Yesh Breira by Daraisa. We're passing like Rabbi Oishia, who says Yesh Breira by Darabana. But who said that we can hold that Yesh Breira also by Daraisa? So in fact, maybe the Gemara in Beitza, which says that in passing like a Boishia, who says Yesh Breira by the Rabbanon and not by the Raisa, yes, we pass like him, Lagabe his halacha that the Rabbanon is Yesh Breira. But Lagabe his halacha that by the Raisa ain't Breira, they would not pass like him. And maybe we pass him that there's Yesh Breira even by the Raisa. That was the Reis teretz. But the Ran doesn't like the Reis teretz either. Why? Because you have to say by the Raisa ain't Breira. Because he brings rayas from a very interesting case of Achin Shachoku. The loch is, if two brothers yarshin a whole bunch of properties, and they make a deal amongst themselves, who's going to get which properties? If you hold of Breira, then we'll say that the properties that Reuven got from his Yerusha, that he selected, were always destined to be his. Those were his Yerusha. And the properties that Shimon got were always his Yerusha, if you hold of Breira. Which means that Kam Yovel, they keep their share. But if you hold Ein Breira, then just because Reuven got these set of properties and Shimon got those set of properties, in fact, they might have yashin different properties and they could have swapped. And the fact that Reuven's currently holding these and Shimon's currently holding those is because they swapped, not because that was their original destiny to yashin. Which means we look at it as if they purchased those properties from each other. Which means Kam Yovel, they could redo the whole thing. If Reuven doesn't like what he got, if Reuven thinks the grass is greener on the other side, he might get the other side's grass, right? So the Gemara paskins like Shmuel, who says, "So achin shachalku lekuch oisein umachzirin zel zebeyovel." So we do know that you say ein breira. So since we know for a fact that the loch is ein breira, how in the world can we possibly understand our Gemara, who paskins like Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, and the only way we could understand it is because of Yesh Breira. So now the Lomdisha part of the two of this sugya comes into play here. So the Ran brings a Ramban who has an innovative shot in how the contract works when there's two shutzim, which takes it out of the Shiloh of Breira. The Ran doesn't like it, and then the Ran has his own shot and says it is Breira, but it's Breira light. So that's where we're going to look at just two more Mahalchim, and I'm going to explain them as best as I can with my limited understanding of them. Somebody asked me why I came early to shul this morning. I told them because I don't understand Breira. So Chanishka hat kam Breira. So I had no choice. I had to come. So the Ram brings down from the Rambam as follows. He says that whenever, and I'm using a little bit the explanation that some of the Achronim discuss, is that whenever we buy a property, it's really just a co-op. We're buying a co-op, and therefore we're all sharing everything, and nothing's ever completely yours or completely mine, and therefore you can't answer. So let me read the Ramban inside. Whenever two people buy a property together and they're not able to split up. So let's see. Moshe Zal b'Hachaisa. Loydami hach breira dehachal l'da'am. You cannot compare this chotzer that was bought by two shutfim to regular brera. So hacha loy midi, lav midi, the loy misbar ha'idna u'misbar l'machar. This isn't like brera, where today we don't know what's happening and it becomes first clarified later. And if that was the case, then the nema is perida milsa, and I believe we need to look into the Zayin over here to give us the exact reading of the Ramban himself. The nema is perira milsa lemafreya dechida hashtahu. Here it's not a case where we need the clarity of the future to tell us what happened now. Ella chotzer she'ein badin chalukahu. This is a chotzer that cannot be split, and therefore v'chol chad mishtamish b'kula. It becomes like a co-op where we both have rights to the entire field. The chivon the shitvin ki hagavna. Again, it skips out the ninu. The chivon the shitvin ki hagavna havitash mishayu mahashta amrinon keman the ayil with the nafshehu v'loy mishtamish b'dechaper. Since we say that from the beginning it's this type of arrangement that we both own everything, wherever any one of these two partners go at any time, we consider it like it's their own. De'im teser alav, if it would be possible for one to prohibit the other, nimtza zeh moitzi oitzoy mechetzera. That means you're making me leave my own field, my own chotzer. Ve'ein adam oiser nichse chaveroi al balein. I could never make you also to have enough from your own property. So the Ramban is not saying a chiddush in brera. He's saying a chiddush in how the financial arrangement is when two people buy a property together that they're never able to split. You always look at it like they both own it fully, and therefore no one could ever ask. So that's still a problem. So that will explain why we can pass on like a Eliezer, even though we hold a brera. So that's the Ramban's pshat. But the Eine Noichli, the Ram doesn't like it. Because once again, then it's not brera. Dem Isa, my lishna the aim brera, the yesh brera, the Amrin husband beper kapara. But based on the way the Ramban explains how the shutfas work, then it has nothing to do with brera. And once again, it's not going to jive with the Gemara Bava Metzia that specifically says that the question here is brera, when it's not brera. It's because of a new understanding of how a partnership works. So because of that, the Ran has to split hairs more and say it is brera, but it's brera light. And therefore, by big brera, there we say in brera by their eyes. By brera light, we'll say H brera. So what does the Ran say? Whenever you're about to get something complicated, it's always introduced, it's pashut. So that at least we should think it's pashut, and maybe it'll be easier for us to process it. The brera the hacha kabrera the al. Brera, this brera is like every other brera, except not quite. Ela mishum, the hach brera adifa, since this is a better brera, meaning it's more mistaber that it should work, therefore paskina hacha krabelez ben Yaakov, miu hachanami anutrichan brera. We still need brera. The gloy milsalam afreya. We still do need later information to clarify what occurred in the past. In other words, we need the later information as to who is in this property at which time, because that's going to actually populate the schedule that was created at the time of the purchase agreement. I disagree with the Rambam that this chutzner belongs equally to both of them. Demar, lav demar, videmar, lav demar. It cannot belong to both people. And I don't like this co-op agreement that we both own it fully. That doesn't work for the Rambam, for the Ram. Elahachi amrina, sheshutvan halalu, b'shah shalokhu achotzer, when they originally bought it in their purchase agreement, this is how the partnership crystallized. Al das kein lakhua, sheb'shah sheyishtamish bo echad mehen, take kula shalol l'tashmishay. At the time of the purchase agreement, we have to use brera to know that any time in the future that partner A is going to be using this property, that's written in to the contract of sale that what's my partnership? I own it on Wednesday, June the 11th from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. And all that schedule is populated at the time of the purchase based on information that will only happen later. So why isn't this real Brera, right? Ulufi, so the run for Empress the Kasha, ask it. Mamish beautiful. Ulufi shemisha rishono, eino niyodim, be'eza yoin, ube'eza shah, yishtamish by kol echad mehem. Since at the time when the sale is crystallized, we don't know at that point exactly what their schedule of use will be. Therefore, on utrichen lebrera, we need Brera to tell you loymar she'achshav she'echad mehen mishtamish ba. 10 days later, where Reuven is using this property, hover adavar lemarfeya, that retroactively populates the schedule in their partnership agreement. Shemisha rishoina kan oisa kula l'shosu. It retroactively puts into the schedule that the property is going to belong fully to Reuben during this period of time. Ubevadai yochel adam naknoisa chodesh shechel Reuben chodesh shechel Shimon. Don't ask me how is it possible for a property to go back and forth from one partner to the other partner, because we know that if you want to sell a property or gift a property, you can say for the month of Adar it should belong to Reuben, and for the month of Nishon it should belong to Shimon. You could do that. It was man kol echad v'echad kanu loy legamri, and during that period of time it belongs to him fully. The hainu nichsilach b'acharecha l'ploin. El mishum dahacha ein zman kol echad v'echad yodua. Since here, when the transaction is being crystallized, at that point, we don't know what the future schedule will be. That's why it would only work if you hold Brera. So getting back to Chaim Skatcher, so that's regular Brera. Why is this lighter Brera that even though we pass and you don't say Brera by the Raisa, why here would you say Brera? The Brera the Alma, the Igli Hashta, we're only finding out later information that we need to populate the schedule that's going to be crystallized upon purchase. So now the round's addressing what Chaim asked. This isn't as severe as Brera d'Alma. Why? And feel free to argue with my interpretation of the round. The Hainu Taima, the Amrinon Ba'alma, the Ein Brera. Why do we normally say Ein Brera? You can't have something chal on the suffix. And now the Ran gives us a specific example of where we don't say Brera. Write a get for my wife. I have 4 wives. I'll already use it for the wife that I want. So don't ask me now, how do I know her name? Let's put all that aside. Let's say they all have the same name, everything's the same. I just want to focus on the Brera portion. If I say write a get for my wife, and I'll already decide later. So there I need the get to be chal now when the cipher is writing it, but I don't yet have the information as to who that get's being chal for. So therefore, pasal l'garish boy. L'fishiyesh sufik mishar rishoina ve'ikar get l'shem yichal. When you're writing the get, when you write the get, you don't even know who the get's chal for. That's a real serious problem with Brera. Or we have this situation where there was a very good speaker coming, but we weren't sure if he's coming from the east side of the city or to the west side of the city. And either way, it would be out of my tchum. So what I did was, before Shabbos, I set up an Erev Tchumen to the east. I set up an Erev Tchumen to the west. Now, you cannot be Kohen Shvisa in 2 places. You have to decide where you're going to be. So I made it. I said, if the speaker ends up coming from the east side, I want that to be my Erev. But if the guy ends up coming from the west side, I want the west side to be there. I'm not going to know until Shabbos afternoon where the guy came from. The problem is my Erev needs to be Kohen Shvisa, Erev Shabbos by Beinish Moshes. And at that point, I have no clue. The information is not even available as to which one should work. That's also real Brera. Doesn't work. That doesn't either help. You should be B'shas Kniyas Erev. At the time when the Erev was going to be Chal, which is Shabbos Ben Ishmoses, there's no clue yet as to which Erev will be Chal. That's a real Brera. By each of these Erevs, the east and the west, it's possible that this will not be an Erev at all. Even though in the future it will become clear which one I wanted to be chal at the beginning, ain't greater. There you don't say greater. The Ran circles back to the case of Achan Shechalchu, which we discussed earlier. It's possible that I was never Zoicha in this property. We cannot know exactly who yarshened what originally. The Cholcha was ein brera. Aval Hacha here it's much simpler because the main transaction we already know. We bought a field b'shutlas. That's not a suffix. We know for sure there's a chalois of a transaction where you own 50% and I own 50%. It's only details that become revealed later. There's no doubt that we're both going to be kind of. It's not a subject, are we going to be kind or not? Is it going to be an Arab? Is it not going to be an Arab? Is it going to be a get? It's not going to be a get. Well, I'm for sure kind and you're for sure kind. That's clear. So the main information of the transaction is crystal clear now that we both have half. It's just the details. The schedule is the only thing that needs to be revealed. No one's kosher that maybe one of these two aren't going to be kind of their half of the partnership. It's clear. We know right at the original transaction that they're each going to be kind of. And we also know that he'll be able to use it whenever he wants, provided that the timeshare is available. Therefore, since the main kinyan, the main transaction is crystal clear at the time of the transaction, and the only thing that's becoming clear is the schedule. Just a small detail of the schedule. The main structure of the transaction is clear. The schedule is not clear. There you would agree that there's breaking by deraisa. She'ein hamiyut hamisupik mitchilosai umisbar la'achamikam. That tiny bit of information, the schedule that we don't know at the beginning, it only becomes clear as time unfolds. That will not be ma'akev eseroiv shoyabar mitchilosai. That's not going to prevent the main kinyan from being chal. And therefore, even though normally we pass like a boishia, like it says in Maseches Beya, which was one of the pillars of our kasher, that it says ein brera, and in Bavlitzia it says that this is also brera, which it is, it's just brera light. Paskin and Hachak, Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov, the Bechiha yesh brera. We pass like Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov here that by brera light, you'll say brera even if it's a deraisa. And of course, the Rabbanan argue. The Rabbanan hold that you cannot use the field. Rabban Pligalei, the Chivon de Mikomakayim, at the Tzarech Loimar, Shehover Hadavar. At the end of the day, you still need information from the future to clarify the past. Mikomakayim at the Tzarech Loimar, Shehover Hadavar, Achshav, Shebisha Ploinis, Hasheknu Elo Gamrei, Shaloi Hoya Mispar Zem Etchila, even if what I need, the information that I need is merely a detail, but since I don't have the full information of how this transaction is going to unfold, ain't brera, you don't allow it. So we have to go back to what the Ram said, that we each have a shibud that will not allow you to throw me out, not allow me to throw you out, and so that's the Ram's shita. So though I have 100% clarity, no, but at least we're able to read the words and understand the words. It's brera because there is still some information that we're learning in the future that's going to clarify the past. But nevertheless, the main transaction is pretty solid, and therefore everybody would agree that you hold the ish brera. Besides your bone.
What if the guy decides not to even get his wife, or the speaker never shows up? So you were in a state of flux.
I don't want to go there. It's just complicated enough.
Okay. You're saying it's fair that for sure I'm going to find out, right?
Well, I'm gonna decide, whichever one I want. I'm gonna find out whichever one I want.
Where the guy shows up, that's where you decided.
Which guy shows up?
Or by Shabbos.
Speaker.
The
Oh,
speaker.
the case, right, so when the guy shows up, it'll be decided, that's correct.
But if he doesn't show up?
What if nobody shows up?
Yeah.
I don't
You
know.
have a problem.
You can't go anywhere.
You're
You
not
can't
going
get
anywhere.
Not going anywhere.
Yeah, stay at home.
Practically, I'm
And
not-
then the guy with a cat,
And then
decides
the
not to
guy
give us
with
one
the
ticket.
I'm not sure how that works.
It's not again, who cares?
Okay, so beautiful. So basically we have four Mahalchim, that's what I want to get out of here, we have four Mahalchim. Either you have Rabbeinu Tam, who says it's because of Yesh Vita is not Asur, or you have the Re, who says that really Breira is even by Deraisa, and when we say we pass by Boishia, who says it's Breira B'Deron, we mean Deraisa also, right? Then we have the Ramban who says that when two people are Shutvis, it's a co-op, we both own everything and there's no issue. Or the fourth pshat is the Ram's pshat, that it is Breira, but it's Breira-like. Okay, beautiful.
That's the name of the shit, very like.
Now, I just want to add, there's another explanation from Tosfos and the Rosh that's similar to the Ran, but the Ran splits it by time. In other words, when I'm there, I own the whole property, and when you're there, you own the whole property, and all that has to be clarified is the schedule. The Russian Tosfos say that, no, when I'm here, this part is mine, and maybe that part is yours. So the Ran splits the property up. The Rush splits the property up. What's the difference? Very simple. There's a Shiloh. What if you have a timeshare with a goy? Are you mechuyev to put a mezuzah on that property? If you don't like the Ran, that when I own it fully, and when you own it fully, then when I'm there, I have to have a mezuzah. But if you hold when I'm there, I have my part, but he could still have another part. So then, if it's so shutfim, you don't have to put a mezuzah. So they actually clear up. A Kiveger actually clears what would be the halacha with mezuzah in such a case. Okay, so that takes us through the first three lines of the Mishnah. Now we're going to discuss more issues. Now, so what do we have over here? We have two partners that assered each other to benefit from them. The Ram explained Rabbi Elazar Yaakov as saying that Breira light, we say, and therefore you can't stop me from standing there, and I can't stop you from standing there. But what about activities where I actually am infringing on your use? We're saying that by me standing in my property, I'm not even overstepping my boundary by a millimeter. So therefore, you can't ask me, right? Using Breira. But what if I'm doing an activity that will overstay? What if I'm making a simcha? I'm making a simcha there, and now I'm going to have all these guests coming, and they're going to be parking on your side, and they're going to be walking through your property. What about them? There, for sure, everybody would hold it would be usher, because even if you have Breira, that takes care of what's mine. But when I'm infringing on what's really is, that's for sure going to be a problem if I'm not allowed to have enough of it.
That's how it's time shit.
Right. Okay, that's right. So let's see what the Gemara says. That's a good point. So Ushnei Masurim, both are also Lahamid Rechayim Vitaner Ulagadal Tanagoyim. Nobody's allowed to do such a use. So let's see the Ram. The Alpha Gav Damrin Mepech Chaskas Abatim. The Shutfim Ahamoda Kedi Loikapti. Even though Shutfim normally don't have a problem if their Shutif overuses the property a little bit. Mikal Mokaim Ikapti, if they are Makwid, Yecholim La'akav Zelzeh. Anything that I legally can stop you from doing, I can answer you with an eder. Because that's mine. That's mine to answer. So therefore, since this is a use that I could technically prevent you from doing legally, I can get a court injunction to stop you because you're infringing on my use, then I can also ask you with an eder. Once again, the viter aser b'mudrano. Oh, with another, I can answer a shibud. But this isn't the shibud. This is really mine. You're mamish infringing on me. I could legally prevent you from doing what you're doing, even though normally I wouldn't bother. I want to be good with my neighbor. But anything that I could legally prevent you from, I can ask you with this or no, because that's really mine. Makes sense, right?
I could even if as a shibud, surely.
If it's mine, that's correct. But even if you hold like Rabbi Elazar Yaakov, that there is no shibud, we use breira. That just takes care of my use of the property. But the use of the property that infringes on him, that he can legally prevent you from doing, that already breira doesn't help you for. That breira said was his. Yes. ושניהם אסורים להמד רחיים ותנו לגדל תנגון. Hayam echad mehem mudar hano mechavere. Interesting case. Until now, we were talking about both are usher on each other. Now we're talking about it's only one way. There should be no difference, and in fact, there isn't a difference. Lo yichanis lechatzer. According to the Rabbanan, the guy who's usher can't go into the chotzer. And the Ran says there's no chiddush in this because it's exactly the same case as the case before, except it's only one way. The reason why the Mishnah repeats it is because of the line we're about to read. The chayfines hanoider limkers chalkai. Now, if you caused all this type of trouble and you answered yourself from having enough from your friend, and now you're not going to be able to be ma'imitaner v'rechayim, now we're going to force you to sell. Because now you're putting yourself into a dangerous situation where you might be over your nether. Nobody asked you to be an Eibuch Chucham and to make the nether in the first place. We're going to punish you and force you to sell out.
Yosy,
Anybody agrees to this? The Revelation Yaakov as well as the Chachamim.
Yosy, you're talking about the Nedarim. You're talking about shvuas that you swear on somebody not to do. What if you make a neder that says, I am never going to ask you to come into my field?
Well, that would be a shvuah. And then you violated your shvuah, and then you did. So then you're being over your shvuah. A guy promised, I'll never ask him to come into my field, and then he makes another. Yeah, then he violated his shvuah. He's a schizophrenic guy.
No, because when two partners go into a partnership, they're the best of friends. But then when the
reality
focus
sets in.
is, they're the biggest enemies. So I'm
That's
saying
why you have to write a good partnership agreement, and that's why the Ran wrote a very long partnership agreement. The Ran wrote a very long partnership agreement up here. But yeah, in the Chanam, you're saying good. Okay, so let's see the Ran. So Shlomi asked a very important question. This halacha that kofen is anoid limkar, is that according to the Chachamim or is it also according to Rabbi Elazar Yaakov? So the Ran has a very interesting comment over here. Zok the Ran, the kofen hanoider limkar eschelkai. I'm actually in the middle of the Ran. The kofen hanoider limkar eschelkai, right opposite where it says Gemara. If you slide up and slide to the left and to the right and move up a little bit, the kofen hanoider limkar eschelkai. Why is that? The dafik is another echad mehem. Only if only one of the two make a neder, do you force. If they both are usher on each other, then they don't have to sell. They could remain in that deadlock as long as they want. But if only one person is usher, then you do force him to liquidate and to get out of the partnership. Why? The kivan the EU usher, the chavrei mutter, since he's not allowed to have enough from his friend, but his friend is allowed to have enough from him, chashinan we're afraid, shama yiskana b'chavrei. He'll see his friends making a geschmacka barbecue for his friends, and he also wants to make a barbecue for his friends, but he's not allowed to. But his friend is allowed to. He's going to say, you know what? He's making a barbecue. I'm also making a barbecue. The problem is, if he makes that barbecue, he's being over a nether of a deraisa. It's a very serious avera. Therefore, kadesha lo yikasho, to prevent him from chas v'sholom being nishal into isur kainamos, koivinois and limkor, we force him to sell. The Ran is going to come up with a very nice piece of psychology to explain this beautifully. Avo, if neither of us are allowed to make that barbecue, they're like Hashinan, the Kolchad Vechad Mizdahar Be'isurei. Everybody is going to stick to his Isur. You're not going to make barbecues. I'm not going to make barbecues. You'll use the property when you want. I'll use it when I want, and we're not going to have any issues. And Huadin, what if I say, forget Shutfim? I have my own property, and I say I'm never going to have enough of my property. My own property. You don't force him to sell because he's going to be jealous that his neighbor's making a barbecue and he can't, right? You don't force him to sell. It's only when we're partners and my partner is getting all this benefit from the property that I'm jealous of, that we're afraid that it eats me up alive, and I'm afraid, but it doesn't really eat me up so alive. Because the Ran's going to ask a Geshmaka Kasha in a second. But a real Gotziana Kasha, the Ran's going to ask. The Ran's going to ask Gotziana Kasha, and it's going to answer it like a nice, bottom, generous English Yid. You're going to see what's going to happen. Maybe a Gotziana who's going to try to act as an English because he wants to do a good shidduch. But whatever the case is, you only force shutfim when there's an imbalance where one shidduch is allowed to make a barbecue and one not. Zok the Ran, here's where it gets exciting. Va'afilu Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov nami. The shari lekanis l'chatzar. According to Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, I'm allowed to walk in. According to the Chum, I can't even walk in. I'm not going to be jealous. But according to Rabbi Elazar, I'm allowed to walk in. So what's the problem? If I'm allowed to walk in, why do you force me to sell? Still claiming I should live for. So why? The lididei, I have to make a better joke. The lididei nami ikal lemechash. Even according to Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, I have to worry. When he sees his friends setting up this massive barbecue and it's mamish happening, and he's not allowed to, he's like burning up inside that he can't do this. Yiskanaboy, he's going to be so upset and will be jealous. And he's going to do it and he's going to violate the nether. I'm sorry? He's not allowed to. It's us, he's us about I'm allowed to stand there, but I'm not allowed to infringe. Remember the Gemara? The Mishnah says, we're both also to make the barbecue because that's literally infringing. Now they're on this geschmack. The ash relay, according to the Rabbanan, who hold you not even allowed to set foot. I understand. I'm not even allowed to step into the property, my property, and you're making a barbecue there. The Chaveri Mutter, maybe the liquid says there's nothing I can do about it. But Avalor Blessed Yaakov, my Ichbus produces a regular Unamishari. I'm not jealous that he can walk in. I can also walk in. He can make a barbecue and I can't. I can fix that. I'm a Galtiana. That by Mother's Rechaim, he has the right to stop him. He has a legal right to stop him, we said. So what's the problem? Why are you forcing me to sell? I'm allowed to walk in like you're allowed to walk in. You're allowed to make barbecues and I can't. I could stop you from making barbecue. I'll get a court order that's going to stop you from infringing on me, and then we're all even. Even the Goltiana wants to act like a gentleman. The kivun da shutz the kiagavna like kapti, since normal shutzim aren't makbid on each other. He's embarrassed to pass them this something you can. I can't forgive them eating myself up inside that you're having a party and I can have it. But I can't admit it that I don't forgive you. So Mamaila, I'm in a tough spot. The Hach Seifa Benadru Zemizel Kim Gemara. The Seifa speaking where they both made another on each other. The Chivin Shechaverai Loy Goram Loy Isser. Elahu Atzmai Goram Shenodar. Since I caused this nether myself, I made a nether. So we're not. The Gemara says in Maskana that I was the one who accepted the point. You did. If you came and said, "I'm asking you to have an offer from me," then I wouldn't have any problem forbidding you from making a party. Oh, you're going to start up with me. You're going to ask me. But here, that's not the case. Here, the case that the Gemara says is where I brought this upon myself. I wasn't going to fight with you. I, on my own, said I'm not going to have an offer from you. So Lama Yaakov Chaveroi Midavar Sheina Shutim Akpidim. Why would I be such a chayerua and not let my friend make a barbecue in the property where normal people always allow it? As much as I don't think that he can make that barbecue, I don't have the backbone to stop him because then I don't look like a gentleman. When we touch so we're afraid that he's going to be so upset that his friend's partying and he can't. He's going to do it as well. That's such a beautiful rod.
I think what this guy's gonna do, some other partnership he has is gonna take it out on that. What did I do? I can't explain.
Gewaltig. It's gewaltig. It's like in this parsha when Yaakov, after being so bugged by Lavan, he didn't say a word. He didn't answer. Lavan kept on fooling him and taking advantage. He didn't say a word. But finally, when he came and he checked the whole thing, finally Yaakov lost it. He gave it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sagt der Heilige Gemara weiter. Sagt der Heilige Mishnah. We're still in the middle of a Mishnah. Okay. Sagt der Heilige Mishnah weiter. Hoyo echad min ashuk muder be'echad mehem. They're getting along just dandy. But there's some other third party, Beryl or Chaim Yankel or Moshe Shmuel. One of the Shutman said, Moshe Shmuel, you cannot have an offer from us. Okay? So what is halacha? According to the Chachamim, he can't walk into the Chatzar. But according to Rabbi ben Yaakov, he can say, this third party could tell Reuben, yeah, you don't let me have enough from you. I'm coming on Shimon's dime. So therefore, he can't stop it. Now this comes with a very important caveat. And let's see the Ram who explains this very important caveat. So the third party can say, I'm not on your dime, I'm on your friend's dime. So Zok the Ram, very, very, very important. And he says as follows. Miyu quotes of a Rashbazal. He quotes from the Rashba, where I don't know about that, 8 lines down in the wide lines. Miyu quotes of a Rashbazal. The Davko Keshu Nichnas, that the third party can go in and say, Reuben, I'm not infringing on you, I'm on Shimon's property. That's Keshu Nichnas L'Tzarech HaShutif. You're going there because Shimon wants you in the property. Bein Shu Tzarech L'Shutif or Shushutif Tzarech Loi. You have some business with the Shutif. Either you're going there to meet the Shutif, you got to talk to him about something, you need something from him, or he's calling you, he needs you. That's the only way you can say, I'm there on Shimon's property, not on your property, Reuben. If I own the property, I'm entitled to entertain a guest. So if someone wants to come visit me, that's part of my right. So this fellow can say, I'm here on Shimon's dime, your Israel can't bother me. But what if neither one invited him? That's also, if he still wants to loiter in the property, that would not be allowed, that would be an Israel. Yes, we did agree that each one has the right not only to be there, but also to use it for any use they need, including entertaining guests. That doesn't mean they let anybody walk in. The Ra'al will be mutter either way. Okay, so that's talking about a third party. Next. What if Reuben tells Shimon, you may not have any hana from me, period. And it happens to be that Reuben owns the main bathhouse in the city. He owns the merchatz in the city. He owns the press in the city, that everybody uses that service. But muskarin, he's the landlord, he rented it out to somebody who's operating the Beis Abad or someone who's operating the merchatz. So the question is do I own it enough that now it asks him from going, or maybe since it's rented, so then it's not mine anymore, and he could go use the Beis Merchatz. That's the question there. When I rent something out, do I still own it enough that someone who may not have enough from me cannot use it, even though he's being serviced by the person who leased the property from me, or not? So Zok
maybe go out of this about this in the mind, or
for now we'll say the question is if he has the ability to answer. That's a very good point. So what if the owner has a tvisas yad, he has a grip on it, and the Gemara on Amud Beis will tell us what this grip means. Also, then it's also. But if he has no grip on it, then it will be mutter. This already is a very familiar Mishnah. We've had it many times. I'm making another that I'm not allowed to go into your house, but I link the iser to the house belonging to you. When it's your house, I'm not going to go into it. So then, what if the owner of the house died or sold it? Mutter, because I linked the iser to when it belonged to you. But what if I said I just answered this house, nothing to do with the owner, or then even if you sold it, it will be also because it's that field, it's that house that you answered on you permanently. Okay, gewaltig. So the Ran speaks about this, but not over here because the Rans are out of order. So the Ran speaks on this a little bit later. I think it's over here. Over here. Hamudu ano mechaveri v'yosh lemerchatz ubeis avad. V'yesh lemadir merchatz ubeis avad. Im yesh lebe'an tfisa yad lemadir aser muder lehenis mehen. Why? The kivin the yesh lemadir ben tfisa yad havalu kedidei. It's like it's his. The Gemara will explain what tfisa yad is, and then because of a Rashba, very very important. The chiyamrina and the b'she'ein like tfisas yad mutter. That we say that if the owner does not tfisas yad, he cannot ask for anybody from it. That's only if when I made it nether, it was already rented out. But if first I answered him, and then I rented it out, there for sure it remains usher. Chaim, I think this is going to touch on what you asked. The Afagav Ditnan Besamach, even though the very next case of the Mishnah is Leveischa Shani Nichnas, Meisai Machre Lacher Mutter. So you see that once it's sold, it changes. So therefore, maybe here, once I rent it out, it's no longer mine, and therefore it shouldn't answer this party from using it. Zoktiran, very important. When I sell it, that's when it wouldn't be relevant to nether anymore. But renting it is different, and I can prove it. Zoktirashba. Dim isad afilu b'schirishari, listening hiskiran b'koshkin machran. Why did the Gemara say? Why did the Mishnah say a minute later that you only get rid of the nether if you sell it? He should even have said, or Mesh, he should even have said if you rent it. Alavadai kosher kadam nidroi l'schirusai eina iser mistalach al yidei schirus. Schirus would not take off the iser. Aval masnizam b'sheskir in kfar. The Mishnah is speaking where it was already rented at the time where I wanted to make the iser. Uluficha kosher ein loy b'en tfisas yad eina iser chalalei. It's not your shot. I thought it was actually. It doesn't your shot.
God, clear that when somebody is asking, what does he have in the brain?
That's right. That's right. I understand. And it does come up in the Ram, but not like this. It comes up.
And for every unique as a dog that if it was rented before,
That's right. That's right.
Even if he hasn't.
Even if he has, exactly. But there's a place where he talks about the Das too. So let's see now the next. I'm on Mem Zayin Amar Aleph because this is the run on the Mishnah. So I want to on Mem Zayin Amar Aleph, the Ran is explaining the Mishnah that we learned on Mem Vav. So the Ran says, "Kadmul ba'zeh shani nichnas v'sad zish shani lekeach meisay machri la'acher aser." Zok Ran, the kivin the ba'yiseh ka'amar. Since he said ba'yiseh, shavi alei chaticha d'isura. He's making the ba'yis aser, and it's not dependent on who owns the ba'yis. Hilchach afilu machri la'acher aser. You need to know this. The same way Bayiseh is more chomer than Beischa. Le'inyin machran la'acher. If I said Beischa and you sold it, it's not usher. But if it is Bayiseh and I sold it, it's still usher. Hachanami Beischa, chomer Beiseh leading the fila. The same thing would happen if it collapsed. The mamar Beischa shani nichnas. If I say I'm asking myself to go into your house, v'nafal, and this house collapsed. Uvanai, and you rebuilt it anywhere, not even if you built it and rebuilt it in the same place. Wherever you rebuild your house, also the chanisplay, the chalshu beischa mashma. I meant any house that's yours. So beischa is not only a kula, it's also a chumer, because whatever you rebuild is going to still be usher. But if I said ba'yezeh v'nafal, aval b'shechazur uvanai mutter, even if you build it on the same spot, it's going to be mutter. The kivin, the nafal also. This house is no longer here. The Amar Beis Chazeh. What if he said Beis Chazeh? He used both languages, right? So then he has the chumrah of both. Mishum Zeh at the Toifsoi bein lechumrah de mechira bein lekula de nefila. So then he gets both. He gets the kula of nefila. The Haki Yisab Yerushalmi Beis Chazeh. If he said Beis Chazeh Mishum Ma at the Toifsoi, what exactly? How is another chal? Mishum Beis Chazeh Nafal Ubani. If it fell down and he rebuilt it, haleslahu, because he said beischa, but he said zeh, so he gets the better of both worlds. Sai only when it's your house, and sai only this house. If someone tells his yarshim before he dies, tenu beis chasnus livni, give a home of marriage to my son, or a beis armelus leviti, or a home for my daughter to go to if she becomes an almana, v'nafal, and the house fell down, ha yarshim chayavim levnoisai. Because he didn't specify a specific house, give a house. But if he said ba'yiseh v'nafal, ein chayavim levnoisai. U'mistabra, the chayamrina beveischa, shani nichnas, it's mistabra that if I said in your house that I won't go into, the nafal u'banilei, aser, lav davka nafal u'banilei b'mkaimai, to who adin b'banilei b'makam akar aser. It's your house, wherever your house is, even if you rebuild it elsewhere, it will still be aser. The choshu beischa kamar, any house that's yours, I'm asking myself to go into. I did not at nafal ubani lirabusa nakte the barber ba'yiseh ava b'shechazer ubani b'mkoima yuchumidasa yerishayna mutter. If he said ba'yiseh, the thing is even if you rebuild exactly the same house, it's still going to be mutter because this is no longer ba'yiseh.
What could be the homer by base was that? That's something only the cooler, very.
Right, you have the chumrah, you're right. So it's only the kula. So it's probably an issue with the girsa. Because it only kula. Base law means if you sell it, and also, exactly, yes, you're right. Okay, so let's see the Gemara now. Ibailu. Benodrai pligi. Do we say the machloikis where the chachamim are machmer and do not allow me to walk on the property? Is it only if I brought this upon myself? And the Gemara is speculating. Maybe this is not about Brera. Maybe we hold Yesh Brera. Maybe the Rabbanan only say that the reason why I can't step on the property is because you did something stupid. You made a nether. Who asked you to make such a nether? Because of that, we're not going to let you walk on the property, even though technically we hold Yesh Brera and you could have walked on the property. Is that pshat? And if that's the case, Hidiru zeh. Let's say I didn't put it upon myself. I told you can't have enough from me, and you told me I can't have enough from you. So neither one of these two people brought it upon themselves. So then, mi amrinon b'nidrahu depligi. Dafke, if I made the nether myself and I answered myself, that's where it's only a knas to answer him from stepping on the field. Avol b'hidira izeh moidi le rabbanon le Rabbi ben Yaakov dechianusum damu. I'm an honest. It's not my fault that you answered me, and it's not your fault that I answered you. So there, we hold Yesh Brera, and we're going to allow you to step on the field. The only reason why the Rabbanan answered is because you did something stupid. You made yourself usher on your shutav's property. Yeah, so we're going to cancel you and forbid you from walking on this property. Is that pshat? Even if we're innocent and there's no reason to make a knas, pligi Rabbanan, the Rabbanan hold it's usher because they hold ein Brera. Tashma, let's see if we can bring a raya. The words of the Mishnah is, if one of them was mudar from his friend. Now, mudar from his friend connotates, the Pasha connotates, if I'm mudar from a friend, it's because my friend said I can't have enough from it. So you see clearly that we're discussing a case where I'm an honest. You did it to me. Upligi Rabbanan, and the Rabbanan still say I'm not allowed to step on your property. So Gemara, mudar doesn't say specifically that someone else answered me. It just said, I am usher. That's my condition. It doesn't describe specifically how that condition came to be. So maybe it means neder mechaver. Maybe the way I was mudar is because I made the neder on myself, and maybe that's why they're abundant are arguing. So we don't have a raya from the Mishnah. Zok to Gemara, tana neder mechaver nan. Hakinami mistavra. It's mistavra to say that the case of our Mishnah is in a case where I brought it upon myself. The Katani Seifa, the Seifa of our Mishnah says, we forced the person who made this nether to sell his share. If you're going to say that I brought it upon myself, that will explain why you forced me to sell. You're sort of punishing me since you're putting yourself into a dangerous place. You might be over. We're going to force you to sell. If you're telling me that he did it to me, am I kaifin myself? Why are you forcing me to sell my property because this guy created an issue on me? How many this on this? It's not my fault. So therefore, it's inconclusive. We don't have a raya if the Mishnah is discussing the Shaila of Breira, or maybe everybody agrees with Breira and it's just a knas that the Rabbanan are putting on this fellow for making a stupid nether.
So you can for any ships is good. Einer legt sich auf der zweite, so he's the man, and then he says.
But don't punish me for it. If you ask me, why are you punishing me?
That should be a raya that it can't be when somebody, when I must.
The first case of the Mishnah is we're both usher. The question: how did we both become usher? Did we each usher ourselves, or did we each usher the other guy? And it's not clear from our Mishnah which way it is.
I mean, once you start reading the Mishnah, straightness and later is the other guy. You're going to force him. It's a safeguard against somebody doing an easy way to get out of it.
So you tell me if I answered you. So the Ran says that's not even an option to suggest that because there's no problem over here for me. Why would you make such a thing? I'm allowed to make the Nedarim. So you're bringing up a good point. So let's see the Ran. Amrit bishlama the nadahu hani deflected. Levishu gorim last because he caused it for himself. Another who, if I didn't cause this or my opponent caused this or am I kaifin? I'm making this honest. In time of around why did the Gemara answer? And speaking where I'm innocent. There's a mother coming. That's Shlomi's question. Correct around, maybe you know who you forced to sell? You forced the matter to sell. Because you went and asked with me. That's a bad thing to do. So maybe what it means is you force him to sell. It's not mistaber that I should have to sell my property because I forbade you from having enough of me. I'm allowed to do that. There's nothing wrong with it.
The only problem is you haven't seen it this year.
I hear.
Causing a problem.
I hear. So the Ran takes it on as a pashtus that it's not mistaber to do that. This fellow who caused this trouble for himself, Royu Lokif, he's deserving of being forced. The Mahano Yeshloi Lesser Al Atzmoi Nechosav Shochavere. Why did he need to accomplish? Bishlam, I need to teach you a lesson. You did something wrong to me. I don't know. In the comment, that's a big mitzvah, right? So I had to get you back for something. But for no reason, what do you benefit by making Yenizach Chaser? Are you? V'yesh Latnoya, the Rambam Shekosov, the Lamadu Shekosov. The Rambam actually learns like you, that you forced the Madir to sell his property. Even though the Yerushalmi holds like that, Ein Zeh Derech HaGemara Shalom. The Rabbin argues, but the Ram does agree. If this shutuf was a low life and he was always making these types of nedarim, yes, then you'll throw the book at him. Then limkar. And the Ran says, you know, it's called rogel if he does it twice. If he does it more than once, you'll hit him with it. Okay, gewaltig. Okay, let's see the Gemara weiter. Let's see the Gemara. Amar Rabba, Amar Ziri. Running later. Amar Rabba, Amar Ziri. Machloikis sheyesh b'chel chalukah. So now we're getting to Akiva's shaila. The whole machloikis here, and this is not the maskana. The machloikis in our Mishnah is speaking only where this property was eventually going to be separated. Aval ein bo kedei chalukah. If this property could never be separated, divrei kal muter. Everybody agrees that it would be muter. Everybody would agree that it's the Ramban's version of this agreement that we can't answer each other, or everybody would agree that Breira light works. But let's see the right side. The Rabban and Asri, why do the Rabban Asri? You should discover ain't Breira. They don't know love Breira. We don't say that whatever he uses, that was really his property. Since we know they're going to end up separating this, they're going to split this property. You don't know when they eventually split up if this will be by him. So that's where it's also. So what in the world could Rabbi Lazar be matter? We don't even know at this point if he's going to end up getting that piece of property. So how could Rabbi Lazar possibly matter? Zokt the Ran, even there you'll say Breira. They bought it with this intention. So you see that the Rebbe holds that until we split it, I want it to be like the Ramban's version of what a partnership is. Okay, Amar Rabbi Yosef, how could you possibly suggest that if it's ein ba kedei chalukah, how could you suggest that should be divrei kol muter? It's impossible to divrei kol muter. Why? A basic nesses is exactly like a property that we can't split. Because besides for COVID, when we have mechitos separating every seat from each other, normally we all share the bismedrus together, right? So I'm going to raise a very basic nesses. That's a case of a communal property that we all share in that we're never going to split up. If two people answer their nechasim on each other, neither one is allowed to have enough of communal items. So I'm not allowed to go to shul, and he's not allowed to go to shul because we're both having enough of something. If you hold divrei kol muter, then this bishmezer should be muter as well. Elo Amar Yosef Amar Ziri, you have to say for carrot. Machloikis she'ein ba kedei chalukah. The machloikis is she'ein ba kedei chalukah. And the Mishnah that says that a beit is also is going according to the Rabbanon. Avol yesh ba kedei chalukah. If it's eventually going to be split, Divra Akoil Osir, there everybody would agree that it's Osir. Amar Afuna, Halacha Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. So this is where the whole kasha was, because here is where the Gemara is paskening like Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. V'chein Amar Rabbi Elazar, Halacha Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. The next
What
Gemara.
about halacha? What about the halacha that you're not allowed to celebrate the Knesset?
You don't sell it. So since it belongs to everybody, if I'm not allowed to have enough from somebody, I'm not allowed to come into that basic Knesset.
But even halacha, you're not allowed to celebrate the Knesset.
That's right. You're talking not allowed to. But so it belongs to everybody. That's exactly the point. Since you can't sell it, it belongs to everybody. And therefore, if someone is Osir Bano, he's not allowed to go. What is called Tfisas Hayad? What is called Tfisas Hayad? The Chama Tfisas Hayad. Omer Rab Nachman lemechta l'shush v'leruvia. If I'm not charging you a flat rate rent, rather I'm taking a chelik of the profits, like they do in shopping malls, they take rent and a chelik of the profits. But if I'm only taking a share of the profits, well, that means I have a financial interest in the operation of that merchotz business, of that Beis Abad business, therefore belongs to me partially, and therefore this person is not allowed to have enough of it. But if it was less, then it wouldn't be a problem. If it's less than a quarter. That's how some Rishonim are goyers. The Ram actually is a different girsa. The Rosh says, the Rosh learns Aval Beitzim Loy. What is Beitzim Loy? Means it was if I have a concession stand. If the agreement we have is that I don't take any part of the profits, but I have a concession stand. In those days, people didn't buy cigarettes, they bought eggs. A guy had an egg stand outside, I guess it's very busy. People are coming to the America, coming to the Beis Abad, and people used to buy eggs there. So if he has an egg stand over there, then that wouldn't give him enough of an ownership to create an Isser. Abai Amar, Afilu b'Botzer Asr, even if it was less than a quarter, or even if he only had a concession stand there, that's enough of an interest for him to asher on anybody else. So Hechidomi Deshari, so what's called not having Tfisas Yad? The Mekabel Bataska, where there's a flat rate of rent. Where there's a flat rate of rent, I have nothing to do with the business. You're paying me rent, and it's your business, and therefore, even though Reuben can't have enough for me, Reuben can feel free to go to that Beis Abad. Reuben can feel free to go to that Beis HaMerchatz. Okay, we'll stop here, and we will be mamshech later. There's so much stuff here, but it's already 10 to 9, so we'll have to just we'll have to stop here, and we'll be mamshech tomorrow, business. Sorry for keeping everybody so late.
Good luck.
Good luck.
So if we're waking up early, that we should be able to.
Right. That's right. Talk about, seeing you at all.